Hey guys, welcome to PatternLab.London. I'm Ralph, and today we're going to be looking at design concept. Okay, so in the last two episodes, episode 1 and episode 2, we obviously introduced you to our client, Francesca. We understood a little bit about her brief and what she was looking to create with PatternLab. And then we looked at a little bit of inspiration on Pinterest to kind of collate imagery together to create a series of mood boards that kind of explain her brief a little bit and to give us a little bit of inspiration when it comes to this process, which is the designing part. So before we get started, there's a few things I want to talk about first of all. So essentially, if you're not particularly familiar or if you're not very versed when it comes to actually illustration, when it comes to designing garments, let's say on a figure or even drawing the figure itself, there's a little tool that makes things very, very simple, which is essentially what I have in front of me right here, which are model templates. So if you simply type into Google search, you will find, just simply type in fashion design template or model templates, you will have a whole wealth of images to choose from when it comes to these model templates. However, there is one company in particular that we found, which is called Pret-a-Template, which is really useful because essentially what they do is they create a whole range of different model templates for a range of different sizes and also different types. There's menswear, children's wear as well. But the great thing about them is that you can actually get them in a range of different transparencies. So that what I mean is, as you can see here on my left hand side, we have a model template that is obviously very black. You can see it very, very clearly. However, on the right, you can actually download it as a more grayed out version. So it's very, very faint. I'm not sure if you can actually see that. And the reason why we do this or have it grayed out is because it allows us to then draw on the figure without actually having the model, let's say, getting in the way. Okay, so we can draw beautifully on this model template without actually having to worry about any of the model lines getting in the way. And then we can obviously draw in the face and the hands and whatever parts of the body that are exposed that aren't, let's say, covered up by the garments. This is really, really helpful. So yeah, as I said, as you can see here, we have two different versions. We have, let's say, a more proportionate block. This is important because essentially on my right you have these very, very extreme, almost like exaggerated proportions that you might kind of find in a fashion design school or a fashion student may be working from. And this is absolutely fine. It's perfect. It's all about sort of like creating a look or an idea or a concept. Whereas because obviously we want to actually draft these patterns ourselves, we'd quite like to know the proportions of the garment, which is why this in particular would be more helpful. In other words, we can see how far down the leg the coat or let's say the garment would be, how long the sleeves are, etc. It just gives us a better idea when it comes to actually pattern cutting. And also, let's say, for example, if you wanted to give this design to a pattern cutter, they would have more of an idea of what it is you're actually trying to design or create using these model templates, as opposed to this. I mean, these legs are a little bit too long, but essentially it's more proportionate than this one. And you can always create your own that are far more proportionate. You can always, let's say, get one of your friends who maybe you're designing for, ask them to do a few poses, take a photo or two, and then obviously you can trace around them and then scan that illustration into Adobe Illustrator, and then you can obviously print them out as these grayed out templates. Anyway, I'm not gonna sort of like waffle too much about this. Essentially, so we're now ready. We have our mood boards already waiting to go. Our inspiration, we have our brief, and now we have our design templates, which will allow me to design very, very quickly. And we have a side, front, and also a back view, which is really helpful. Okay, so we've printed off some 20 or so templates, which are looking fantastic. So now it's just about time to start designing. So the whole point is now I'm going to be kind of like looking at my silhouette, all the various different kind of options, and then starting to sort of like create silhouettes on my designs. The first couple of designs you're going to be creating are going to be a little bit crap. Okay, the illustration's not going to be very good. It's going to take time to like get into the routine and the rhythm of it. So, you know, don't worry too much if they're not looking perfect or pristine to begin with. Just basically start and see where it takes you. So yeah, so I'm going to be looking at silhouette, maybe a few sleeve silhouette shapes, and then later we'll start adding in pockets and details and other bits and pieces. And then what we'll do is we'll start to hybrid these. So we'll pick out some designs that we love, and then we'll start to work into those and like cross-pollinate them. It's a phrase that I use basically. It's almost like designing is like, let's say, yeah, like cross-pollinating plants. So what would a rose and a tulip look like if you could put them together? Would it have the same leaves, different leaves, have the same flowers? So that's the whole kind of same idea with designing. You're essentially taking elements or attributes from various different designs or your designs and putting them together to kind of create like a finished product, or kind of like experiment or play or develop your designs even further. Anyway, let's begin. Oh, also one thing, it's really important to have a very, very sharp pencil. The sharper the better. I just use an HB, obviously the hardest you can find, nothing too soft, because then it's a little bit kind of crisper or finer when it comes to doing illustrations, especially when you're working on something this small. So yeah, let's just sharpen this one up.
Okay, so once we've got a few hours of designing under our belt, essentially we have a whole bunch of different designs here. So the first one, which are pretty much my first take, these are pretty atrocious to be fair, and it's all just about sort of like playing around with silhouette and kind of like figuring out what it is I actually want to create. So as you can see, these are really, really bad. And as I said before, it takes a little time to warm up. So it just gives you an idea of sort of like what we're doing here. We're just playing around with different, let's say, silhouette shapes, different sleeve types, and also maybe different fastenings. And it's all based around these mood boards just here. Okay, so the different kind of sleeves, different silhouettes, etc. Then we moved on. We started to refine them a little bit more, sort of like taking a bit more time consideration when it comes to the design process. A few more like little ideas, different fastenings, maybe having the two pockets, different fluted hems, and just kind of finding out what it is that we actually love about these different elements. Yeah, so let's just keep going. As I said, they start to get a bit more refined. We're starting to add like little details, also buttons and maybe like little chevrons, different sleeve types. We're lowering the sleeve as well, so it's a bit more of a raglan or a bat wing. Then also doing a little bit more like kimono work stuff, slightly larger sleeves, having the flute at the front. So the whole idea of sort of like cross-pollinating and experimenting with our design elements and with our silhouettes to kind of come up with our own unique individual designs. And then it obviously gets a bit more refined here and looking at still yet more different closures and openings, fastenings and silhouettes. Okay, so as you can see in front of me, after our sort of design process is finished with, and we've obviously been through our not quite right designs, I've picked out all the ones that kind of like really spoke to me or that I quite liked. I can get rid of this one. Let's put this one up here. Yeah, so these are the kind of designs that I actually quite liked, and not one specifically individually, but for various different elements. One being this really beautiful sort of like asymmetrical tulip shape. I thought this was really lovely and also fitted Francesca's brief. So like a side opening, then we have this lovely opening at the front so she can actually walk without tripping up, but at the same time it kind of almost touches or trails on the ground. It's also a very beautiful sort of like classic, iconic shape, I guess. Also, I love the idea of these sort of like beautiful, let's say, princess sleeves with sort of like a little bit of volume around the cuff as well, so that was lovely. But maybe a bit of a softer feel rather than these like quite sharp cuffs which maybe have this extra paneling as well. So this is, yeah, we've got a few different ideas when it comes to sleeves here. But essentially the thing that I want to pick out the most is this tulip hem. I love this idea of the 1920s, let's say sort of, yeah, like a yoke effect on the garment. It's got maybe like a little bit of pleating or ruching going on. I think it's, it's very decadent, it's very beautiful. I loved a lot of the kimono styles, but possibly it's not right for the material or for Francesca at this point. What else can we talk about? Yeah, and also maybe a style like this perhaps, where we have a little bit of, let's say, ruching around the waistline to really like highlight the tight little waist. And also, yeah, this sort of like the different kind of shapes when it comes to the crossover collars, whether it be a crossover, or maybe it's open down to the waist, or maybe it just slightly crosses, or maybe it meets in the center. So these are all lovely ideas that I quite like. Also, when it comes to the pockets, we've got a few that are basically on top of the actual garment, which I think works well if we have maybe some kind of trim detail that works with it. Otherwise, we could maybe just have invisible pockets, so literally just like a little seam, just literally a little opening on either side. I think that's just keep it quite simple, nothing too crazy. In terms of the sleeve length, as I said, we want to keep that quite, let's say, whether it be a 3/4 length, we want to keep it quite tight at the wrist and then have it maybe coming out so nothing gets in her way when she's moving. So yeah, there's a lot to sort of like work into still, but essentially it's one garment, so it shouldn't take too long. I've just done this purely to like demonstrate the design process and how you can create a whole range of different designs based on your initial input, which is your mood boards. Let's just put these out. So yeah, essentially these mood boards, all of these designs are based around these mood boards and take certain elements from that. And so now we've kind of got these designs, we can then work into them a little bit further. I can then maybe create 3 or 4 that I love and obviously present those to Francesca. Yeah, and then next what we'll do is we'll have a look at print design as well, which will be really, really exciting and interesting and really bring these garments to life. But yeah, so far I'm quite happy with what we're designing. Okay. So I'm just going to do a few more designs just to fill in some of the blanks, also sort of like finalize our design concepts, and yeah, it shouldn't take too long, just like maybe 3 or 4. And then I think we're pretty much ready for the next stage, which is obviously our print design side. There's one thing that I did actually really love. So the fact that we have this really lovely sort of like tulip, asymmetric tulip, I want to kind of mirror that into the let's say, top part of the dress. So I really like this kind of like shaping here. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to add it here as well. So we're going to have this side where it's a really nice sort of like sloping, and then this one we're just going to take straight down, almost straight down. There we go. So you have a bit of an overlap, and that way we get our plunging neckline, but we still sort of have a little bit of shaping to it, which is quite nice. And then here I think we're probably going to have a trim as well. Quite like the idea of having a trim. It'll give it a little bit more support, a little bit more structure. Same on the opposite side. And then where these two overlap, we'll have our placket, or basically where the two connect. And I also want to mirror that lovely sort of like idea of these curved hemlines into maybe our placket as well. And we can maybe have a few buttons here, and our split would like start here, for example. And we'd maybe have like a, what do you call it, a tied waist as well. But that's looking lovely. So this is one of the concepts, and this is mainly about this kind of like sleeve shape. So we have almost like a lantern sleeve, but 3/4 of the way up the arm. And the other one will be the kimono, which we're going to do in a minute. So we're just like filling in these blanks here, just sort of like finalizing ideas. And also when it comes to the pockets, I think we're just going to have literally like an invisible pocket. It'll just be a slash like that. And we could, for example, maybe have a trim there, but it might become too much. We've got the trim on the sleeves and on the sleeves, and also on the what do you call it? Yeah, let's say the neckline of the garment. We might not want it here as well because it might be a little bit too much. It's looking quite busy, so maybe we should just actually remove that and just have a little invisible pocket. And when we have that print, you almost won't see them, which is quite nice. I'm going to draw it on there anyway. And this, not quite sure yet, but maybe sort of like some kind of like pin tuck detail. We've got very wobbly hands today, not very steady. Yeah, like a pin tuck detail that goes all the way up into the neckline as well. And this, I think, will have it a little bit more asymmetric and fluted. So we'll bring it up to here perhaps. So it's a really lovely shape. I think this is probably the main concept of this garment, has been dictated by this really lovely sort of like tulip hem. So I want to kind of exaggerate that as much as possible. So there we go, perfect. Okay, then maybe we have our kimono style as well, which is possibly something a little bit different. So using the same kind of body and the same hem, but maybe a different kind of sleeve. So let's have a look. Nice sharp pencil. Okay, kimono. So have that coming in from the waist, have it curving up. Now in the material that we're using, this will probably actually drop because it's going to be a soft satin, so it should drape quite well and just fall down by the arms. If we're using a slightly more structural material, it would probably create this shape. But not to worry, once again I'm just going to use that really lovely curved neckline, and we're going to go just slightly overlapping on the opposite side, so it's slightly off center. Let's have our little placket, let's have our slit or opening, take that down. Let's then create the shape. So a little bit more fluted, not straight down, but maybe has like a little bit of flare at the bottom here. Let's just do our lovely shape. And then let's pick this one up. And let's also pick this one up. Yeah, lovely. Okay, so now we are still going to have this lovely trim, all facing on the neckline. And we're going to mirror it down into here. I mean, we could take it all the way down into the hem. Might be a little bit of a job when it comes to actually stitching this together, so maybe let's not do that. And let's just take it in to about there, maybe have it slightly further down perhaps. Okay, what else? We have our pockets. There we go. I'm just doing this quite quickly actually, because I think I have a good idea of what I want. Let's draw in the little arms. I say little, they're very long and little and thin still. And let's draw in our neckline. And then also just an idea of the bust and where it would be. And let's make that slightly lower. Okay. I mean, I think I've got a good idea of what I'm looking for here, and possibly something that we can show Francesca, so I don't need to work too much into this, but I think this is definitely the concept. The flute, the hem, we've got this little neckline here, maybe we have some buttons to close it, we have the pockets, we have our opening just here, and either it's going to be a kimono, or it's going to be that other sleeve type. And let's just put our trims on as well.
Okay, so I'm going to do a few more sketches, but essentially that is the idea and where I'm kind of going with this. So it should be lovely. Okay, so yeah, join me next week, or not next week, but the next episode where we're going to start looking at prints. I don't want to show any of this Francesca yet until we've actually got a range of prints to show her as well, so we can do it all at the same time, have one big sort of like debriefing. It should be a really, really fun episode. I'm going to get loads of plants and flowers and things I'm going to use for my print and just have a bit of fun, create some sort of like some live prints and then obviously put them into Photoshop and then start to play around with them. And add some colours, change colours, all kinds of things. I'm really looking forward to this episode. But essentially that's pretty much a little bit of design process, a little bit of an overview and where we are at the moment with our design for Francesca. One last thing, also don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook, you can like us on Instagram, and we also have a Twitter account. Just up to date with all of our progress when it comes to this project and also other updates when it comes to our products and services. Yeah, anyway, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you next time.